Scams. Not spam. Scams. Smeat? No. Spam? No. Scams. What about scams? Why, Jay, do you say that scams are a big part of how the world works? Well, because it's factually the case. That's why I say it. Because my many years of research into cults, geopolitics, and espionage has shown me that, hey, wait a minute, just like there's these connections in realms and worlds that you wouldn't expect, like secret societies and intelligence agencies and secret societies and Hollywood. Guess what? There's connections between the world of scams, high-level con artistry, and the functioning of the world. Now, how did I come to that conclusion? Well, did I set out to study scams? No, not really. I never really thought about that. But I also didn't set out thinking or wanting to study organized crime syndicates, the mafia, and how that relates to the deep state and geopolitics. Never would have thought that was a connection, although I should have paid more attention to the movies because that's actually in a lot of movies, right? And so in the same way that we can study, for example, the history of espionage and intelligence work, we can see that a large portion, hey, what do you know, of that is deception. Of course it is, right? That's kind of like intelligence stuff 101 is betrayal, lying. Counterintelligence. We've done multiple lectures on counterintelligence, how certain movies give an insight into the functioning of counterintelligence, counterespionage, the principles there. And then I did a whole other separate stream on spies' investments, understanding the religious world's relationship to espionage. Interesting. Yes, and there's quite a bit on that. And so really what we've been doing is Cruel Intentions. Exactly. Thank you so much. Yeah, we did if you've not seen that live stream, guys, that's a really good one. I highly recommend, because we took a step away from our general sort of esoteric analysis of films, and we got into the psychological, the psyops elements within certain stories, principles in certain stories, of which Easy A and Cruel Intentions were excellent examples. So I'll give you guys that one if you're looking for something along these lines. And there's a whole other book that I delved really deeply into over on the shelf. I forgot to get it. This is the Gigantor History of MI6 by a critic of MI6, Professor Stephen Dorrell. Another one of it's a mainline academic text. He is a professor at University of Huddersfield, which I don't know where that is, but I had a couple email exchanges with Professor Dorrell asking him questions inside the covert world of Her Majesty's Secret Intelligence Services. So I got a hold of this many years ago when I was studying for my thesis on Bond and whatnot. And this is like a tragedy and hope kind of level book, right? I mean, it's pretty intense. It's one of them 900 pagers. Okay, so this is a 900 page super academic book. But I was really interested in this one because it wasn't an official type of thing. It's more of a critical thing. And he's willing to go into areas that vindicate a lot of what we talk about. Right? I mean, this talks about fake flags. This talks about the money power. This talks about Ian Fleming in here. It talks about oil men, that intelligence agents have used oil men and oil companies as covers. Yeah, no surprise there. Gets into even what Fletcher Prouty talks about. Fletcher Prouty comes up in this. Funding of both left and right groups comes up in this. You get discussions of Bohemian Grove. No, wait, not Bohemian Grove. Bilderberg. Bilderberg comes up in this. Rhodes Roundtable Group comes up in this, right? I mean, This should be its own, its entire own lecture series, right? The history of British intelligence. This should be its own series. What we're trying to get at here is that, all of us have been kind of on a learning journey, a process of learning for the last several years, more and more and more about how the world really works. Oh, by the way, he talks about MK Ultra, artichoke, all that. Now, this is not a conspiracy text. Okay, so keep in mind, this is a mainline academic text critical of MI6, and it's a 900-page book, dude. So you better get ready. But what I'm getting at is that I think people don't understand this domain of things, right? This is a huge element of the control structure and the propaganda structure, the deception structure, the psyop structure, right? Is these three-letter agencies and what they do and what they're all about. And it's not what Hollywood, of course, tells you that it's about. Hollywood makes you think that, they're there as heroes to save us from the international terrorists by getting laid, right? James Bond is out there sleeping with the babes to save the West, or whatever other ridiculous narratives, right? That would be the old narrative. Now it's Claire Danes is over there punching, people in Arab headgear to save the West. She's over there girl bossing Arab men to save the West. Right? Girl boss CIA woman saves the liberal West from evil Arab patriarch man, or whatever it's supposed to be. Literally, it's probably got to be, every episode has to be that, right? What even is that stupid show? Homeland? Yeah, that's it. Right. That's the new narrative, right? The Playboy suave man stacking stats in terms of booty. That was the 60s, 70s era. That's what 50s, 60s, 70s. That's what you think a spy does, right? The spy's over there spitting game at the embassy ball, trying to sleep with Russian diplomats or whatever. That's the Cold War image of it. And then it becomes strong, short-haired girl boss. Bop, 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 punching Arab men around. Yeah, the strength of America, boy. Even our women can punch the Arab man around. That's what the media, these stupid shows say it is. Right? The next level. People can grasp the scams at certain levels. But why can people not grasp the next level up of scammery? That's what is mystifying me. We were talking about this in politics. Jamie had a good point about the TikTok trend of narcissists, right? Just like YouTube had its whole algorithmic phase, a year ago of the narcissist videos, right? Just algorithm machine gunning at you, a million different goobers talking about narcissists. Suddenly everybody on YouTube is an expert, a psychological expert. Narcissist. Suddenly every chick on the internet's boyfriend. My boyfriend is like a total narcissist because I watched these 5 YouTube videos and now I can diagnose him. Right? Literally every video is that. And now TikTok is machine gun narcissists. Okay, so wait a minute. You guys are all experts at recognizing narcissists. What about international global elite narcissists? What about Gil Bates? You can't recognize Gil Bates? You can't recognize Klaus as international higher level narcissists? Look at Obama, he's a narcissist. Remember that? But what about the people above him? You don't think that those people are narcissists? You don't think they're internationalist narcissists? Why do you stop at that level, dummy? That's what I'm trying to say. That's what doesn't make any sense. And Jamie had a great point about the narcissists. Everybody on TikTok can figure out their ex-boyfriend was a narcissist. Okay, well, what about the Klaus Schwab? What about Tony Fauci? What about Tony Fauci? Is he's a good guy, right? So at that level, everybody's altruistic. That way, you want me to believe that? Oh, the scientists, they're all altruistic. They're not narcissists. Because, well, if you're a scientist, you're after the truth. You can't be a narcissist. That was the next phase after narcissist was gaslighting. Now everybody knows about gaslighting. Gaslighting me. Everything's gaslighting. You refute somebody in an argument. You're gaslighting me. I disagree with you. That's gaslighting. That's not what gaslighting is, dummy. It's not arguing with you. Remember the vegans? So then all the TikTok people got into doing videos about gaslighting. Okay, what about Big Brother gaslighting you? What about the international? Do you think the World Economic Forum gaslights you, dummy? Do you think they're narcissists? So you can figure out all of the narcissists and the dummies at the corporate level and the government level, but not at the supra-international level. Well, guess what? They're also narcissists, and they gaslight you. And they do it better than the people below them. And why is that? How is this? Because the world is run by elite con artists. And when you see this chick and her con artistry, we're going to look at an example of her con artistry. She's a low-level con artist, right? All of YouTube figures this out. Oh, look at this, right? Millions of views. Amanda Seyfried playing this chick from Theranos. Well, now, wait a minute. What about similar style operations that run just like her little goofy made-up plastic gadget that was going to diagnose you? Remember this? This is her whole scam. I wonder where else we might have seen such scammery. I don't know. I can't think of anything in recent history that might have echoed a very similar scam. What do you guys think? I don't know. I can't think of anything. And not just scams, but think about warfare, right? Everybody knows, surely everybody with an IQ over 80 knows that warfare involves deception, right? Does everybody understand this? Is that controversial? Does anybody want to take issue with that? 7 years ago, we did that interview talking about how cannibalism would be promoted because the elite want all forms of degeneracy promoted. And at the time, people said that was crazy. I did my own video in 2017, 5 years ago, talking about how cannibalism would be promoted. And there were people saying I was nuts. Look at this tinfoil hat, retard. And now what do we see? Not just Vice magazine. So in 2015, 16, 17, it was like obscure things like Vice. Dude, what if we had cannibalism? It'd be so sick. If we could just like eat people when they die or whatever. That'd be sick, dude. Then we wouldn't have poverty and we wouldn't have, like people starving or whatever because you just eat each other. And just literally that level of stupidity. That's what the Vice articles are talking about. There's a time and a place, right? Now it's New York Times. Okay. How the pop culture, the videos, Katy Perry, right? Bon Appetit. They were promoting the idea of cannibalism. TV shows, movies coming out promoting it. And also, I think the key to the Big 9 event, as an example, is not the science, hyper-specified science of the engineers and people like that. Nothing against architects and engineers or the people who do that stuff. That's an important element. However, you really can't understand the Big 9 event without a geopolitical paradigm where you think that that's even something possible. So, for example, a lot of times when you're discussing these kinds of things with skeptics or normies, their response is based on governing assumptions that they have that these kinds of things aren't even possible, you see. Well, maybe first we would want to discuss with these kinds of people things that illustrate that there's precedent for these kinds of events. No, fake flags are possible. They do happen. They're real. Northwoods is a real declassified document. Very similar to the pattern of the events of the Big 9. Maybe Northwoods is a key element in this. And so if you're talking to people who don't even know what that is, you're not going to get very far because it's not even within their vantage point, their perspective of the possible. So they have a governing presupposition of, first of all, what is and isn't possible. First of all, that there are fake flags. They might be that dumb to think that this doesn't exist. Okay, which is ironic because it would be like History of Warfare 101 that warfare engages in deception. Espionage exists. It engages in deception. Hello. Right? How are you going to even read history and avoid the topics of conspiracy and espionage? Likewise, if we want to understand how the world really works, we're not going to understand it only on the basis of conspiracy, espionage, crime, all of which are very important, absolutely necessary to understanding the world. We're going to also have to look at the art of the con artist, the huckster, the shyster, the mountebank, the snake oil salesman. Let's talk about the top 10 scams. Now, again, these are not in any definite order to like the biggest, right? These are just scams that the whole modern world has more or less bought into in varying degrees, but that most people don't think of when you think of the biggest scams. And maybe one or two of these people would be like, oh yeah, that's a scam. But everybody thinks of scams, they think of like, you know, Leo DiCappuccino in, I just went blank. Catch Me If You Can, right? If you say, what do you think about some famous scams? Oh, Enron. Okay, that's a good example. Is that it? Like, there's no other scams? Like, the corporate world just did Enron and Theranos. And then they're like, now we're free from the scams. Really? You think so? I have a revolutionary thesis, which is that the whole world is built on scams. How's that? So what's my first big scam? All right, we talked about people not seeing big scams, even though they can recognize medium level scams. We talked about how intelligence work is a lot of scammery, deception, tricking people. You tricking. Number one for me, and this is not in any list structure other than just 10 of them. Number one, economics. This one's obvious. I mean, Quigley begins his whole book by talking about gold certificates and how the banking elite figured out that they could print more gold certificates than there was gold to back up the certificates. And so it, right? The feather pen machine go, so they just started writing up gold certificates. And then they can deflate the purchasing power through the inflating of the currency, you see. And so we get that energy theft system that's going on with currency manipulation through devaluing the dollar, the gold certificate, whatever it is, through money printer go brr, brr. Very simple, right? But now it's weird because a lot of people have a consciousness of this nowadays. I think through the internet, I guess. But if you guys remember back when in 2003, 4, 5, right when Ron Paul was starting to get popular, 2006, 7, like if you knew about fiat money and all that in 2003, 4, 5, nobody knew about that. And if you talked about it, you would just get shouted down as a loon. And I had a guy in the year 2000 give me a book on fiat currency and gold. It's called Gold and Money by S.L. Mooney or something like that. Mooney is his name, and it's like Gold and Money is the... But I learned about this through the Bonson, Rushdoony, Gary North circles, right? Gary North, Lou Rockwell, right? You start to hear about... So in the late 90s, I first heard about this, right? Money printing, fiat, Federal Reserve scams. And at that time, it was just super rare. And you try to talk to people, nobody would listen to you. Nobody listened to what you talk about. So it's very weird to see nowadays so many people, especially in the crypto sphere, right? Everybody in the crypto sphere, for the most part, seems to have an idea of this. And I'm not saying they're always consistent, because some of the cryptos are based on an inflationary model, which is ridiculous, because the purpose of the invention of Bitcoin was to deal with this problem. So why are we going to have an inflationary crypto, right? That's a dumb scam. Inflationary scams, usury scams, basically. Fiat money, makes my top one. And then attached to fiat money is a whole host of other orbiting satellite scams that feed off of that central big old scam. And if you want my theory on, we're not talking about like spiritual stuff primarily today, like the demonic. Yeah, you could throw in the demonic and all that, sure. But today we're just talking about earthly sphere scams in terms of how the world runs. Taxation, you find out as you own your own business, is really scammy. What? This is crazy. Economics, the boom bust cycle, which we've covered many times, is a scam. And in fact, Quigley talks about how the elite knew that they can do a two-step push-pull between privatization, collectivization by various decades as another higher level scam of the scam. So it's not just having a fiat currency that rips off money. It's that the fiat currency can be manipulated not just in the immediate, but over time to steal entire generations of wealth. Do you see that? Whoa. Quigley says all of the public works projects during the FDR salvation collectivization period went to the banking elite. So it just put more debt to the banking elite. So the remedies kick the can down the road to put the future generations into more debt. Debt compounding debt, compounding debt. Thus, then leading to our giant derivatives bubble, the giant derivatives debt-based world order, which will probably one day totally pop. I don't know how or when or what's going to happen. I have any idea, but as Ron Paul and all the gold bugs have said, well, I think we're headed for danger here. Well, we got to audit the Fed. Yeah, sure. And it's going to collapse, but I don't know when. I mean, it's just really a question of how long can they kick it down the road? That's the question here. And, for example, all of the COOF stimulus, well, we're all feeling that right now, aren't we? With the economic wizardry of the Biden administration, right? The genius of the Keynesian, socialist, capitalist, third way. And here's the thing about today. This is the main point that we got to get across. Because so many people, especially the normies, these poor, dumb, docile normies, I mean, they think that the main reason that things are a problem, that stuff's not working, my economy, my jobs, the border, blah, 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 blah. Right? They think the main reason these things don't work is incompetence. I mean, who is still buying into this? This is so dumb. This is such a low IQ, naive view of the world, that the problems of the world and the problems in our country are due to incompetence. Now, there is a layer. There's a protective layer, a protective force field shield that the elite have of incompetence, and the layer of the incompetent politician. Okay, this is a protective outer force field shield that hides the center nougaty middle, the caramel nougat center, protected by a solid chocolate shield of idiocy and incompetence. And most people think that the people at the top are idiots. Well, who do you think is at the top? Biden? Come on, man. Come on, man. You think Joe's at the top? Really? You think your local senators are at the top? I'm gonna write a strongly worded letter to my local congressman. Do you think he runs things? Let's think about it. Local congressman, senator, right? Setting aside the insider deals they get, what do they make? So in 2022, $174,000. That's all a senator makes. That's weak, dude. I mean, but we all know, by the way, that that's not counting their insider deals, right? Because they come out millionaires because all that office does is give them access to the insider trading, right? Everybody knows this, which, by the way, that's a scam, isn't it? Exactly. Who do you think has more power? The person that makes $174,000 a year, or the guy that has $100 billion? I wonder. Who do you think has more influence, sway, and power? Moxie and mojo. I wonder. The point is, who has more power and influence? David Rockefeller or Senator Joe Schmo, who makes $170,000 a year? Normies think that the senators really have the power and run the land. It's like, I'm sorry for you, dude. I'm sorry that you think that that's who really runs shit. I mean, the dude with like $50 billion can like literally have someone assassinated, fly to his James Bond island, and never be prosecuted. But you think the senator is the one calling the shots? Come on, dude. So I think economics, that's my overall analysis of economics itself, is a scam. At least economics in the modern world, Keynesianism, fiat money, debt-based currency, right? Inflationary principles, all of which obvious scams. That's number one. Number two, revolution. Revolutionary thought, socialism, activism, to a degree libertarianism. It's not as bad as the other ones, but still problematic, right? In the sense of anarcho-capitalist dialectic with socialist communist Marxism. The revolution, revolutionary thought, going back to the Enlightenment and the French Revolution. This one I chose because the whole modern world is the product of the series of revolutions in the last several centuries. And so it has given us what we have, especially all of the bad. And we are living today more and more in alignment with our revolutionary ethos from the time of the Enlightenment and the French Revolution. And so the American Revolution is the co-revolution with the French Revolution. French Revolution, Jacobins, radical, illuminist, communists. American Revolution is the other strand of that same revolutionary principle and lineage of the Girondins, the right-wing revolutionaries who want merchant, Adam Smith principles and Enlightenment principles for government. So not as extreme as the Jacobins, but still part of the same revolutionary ethos. The revolution against authority and tradition. The revolution towards Enlightenment liberalism. Now, there were tyrants, there is tyranny, there are bad sides to the Middle Ages. And the excesses, especially of Franco-Papalism, are part of the justification for the Enlightenment and Protestant revolutions. So not everything in the Enlightenment and the Protestant ethos is bad, but they are limitations based on limited pieces of the puzzle, limited pictures of what's going on. And so all of the modern world's revolutionary activism, social justice warriors, this comes out of a tree, a lineage, a tradition of the revolutionary tradition, or, as the famous scholar James Billington says, the revolutionary faith. Fire in the minds of men. Origins of the revolutionary faith. And in this book, he points out, as a fan of the revolution, that America is also an inheritor, a child of the revolution. But there's a problem with a revolutionary faith. When do you stop? When do you achieve? When is the revolution done? Oh, well, come to find out, It's never done. The revolution doesn't end. In fact, the final revolution is the anti-human revolution, according to the revolutionaries. They themselves write about it and say it. Aldous Huxley, the final revolution is the post-human world. Thus, the Gnostic element and ethos behind the revolution, and it doesn't matter whether you're Ayn Rand over here or you're Karl Marx over here, they're both products of a materialist, dialectical, revolutionary worldview, both based on the same materialist, hedonist presuppositions. Yes, Marxism as well. The only difference being that the anarcho-capitalist says the individual has the primacy. Its dialectical opposite and necessary connection opponent, its flip side, the Marxist says, no, the collective is superior to the individual. The individual has no existence but in the collective. The other one says the opposite. No, the collective has no existence, only the individual. Who can't figure out that this is an obvious manipulation? So the liberal conservative that goes all the way back to not modern America, but to the French Revolution, the Jacobins and the Girondins, that's where the left-right comes from. The Jacobins sat on the left side of the tennis court in the provisional government. The Girondins sat on the right side of the tennis court. Left and right, that's where it comes from. But they're all revolutionaries. So it's a false choice, a false dialectic that far back. So socialism, Marxism, revolutions, and today's revolutions, the revolution against human identity itself, against human essence and nature itself, is just an outworking of centuries of revolutions. What does Jacques Attali say in Brief History of the Future, the book that we lectured through? The transhumanists are today's spearhead of democratic revolution. The spearhead of revolution today is the post-human world, overcoming of humanity itself, according to Attali, one of the global elite, thus himself making the connection between the revolutionary ethos of the Enlightenment and the French Revolution, all the way up to today, as part of the revolutionary heritage and tradition. So this is not conspiracy theory. This is mainline history. This is mainline history in books like Fire in the Minds of Men. According to Quigley, he says that America's elections, at least for 100 years, so he was writing in the 1960s, so he's saying from the time of 1860s to the 1960s, the American, at least presidential, the major elections, have never really even mattered. Doesn't matter who's president. And we really see this to be the case when it comes to Woodrow Wilson, right? Wilson is a really obvious, easy test case, especially given what we learn in Quigley and what we learn in Anthony Sutton, right? In Wall Street, the Bolshevik Revolution. I mean, it's really obvious with him, right? Philip Drew, administrator, Colonel Edwin Mandell House, his handler. Everybody knows this. Clear as day, right? This is the classic Federal Reserve stuff that you learn when you go down the proverbial rabbit hole. Activism and protesting and marches, and they're really just versions of theatrics, right? I mean, they don't really do anything. You could be, I think, before the internet, or even maybe still, like, you know, you can get attention for your protests and your demonstrations, your activism. You can get on camera and you can get before the, I think it was more useful when you wanted to get attention and you wanted to show support, you know, on the streets, and the cameras would, you know, pan and you see all the people that support my protest, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, everybody knows about astroturfing, right? Everybody knows about paying for these things, right? Staged protests. We've seen this many times. But that's just one little scam in a giant, vast archive of scammery. The arcana and lore, the treasures of scammery that are politics itself. Because the more I thought about it, it's not just sports ball that's America's idol, right? I bitched about this a lot. Politics is America's religion. Civic nationalism, politics. Get out the vote! Get out the vote, bro! Rock the Vote, MTV, remember that crap? I was watching these commercials. They were full of propaganda. It's like, whoa, right? You don't notice that obviously at the time, but you go back and watch these, and it's like, but when they were pushing the Rock the Vote, it was all feminist, right? It was Bill Clinton, Rock the Vote, MTV, get out and vote for Bill Clinton, and almost all the ads had these feminist themes and undertones. And at the time, it's like, I never noticed that, right? You're not looking for that when you're a teenager, right? When you understand how geopolitics works, when you understand how espionage and warfare works, then you start to have a wiser approach to politics and activism that liberal groups, revolutionary groups, and right-wing groups can have foreign funding. This is part of warfare. It's part of foreign nations, foreign corporations and entities put money into these things for their interests. Activism, controlled opposition, foreign influence and funding, subversion. Well, I mean, a lot of this is corporate scammery overall. Because like economics, that relates to corporate scams. Socialism, activism, wokeism at the corporate level, that fits in the corporate scammery. Education is the next one. That fits in it. I mean, most of these fit in that. But let's look at this chick, because, of course, everybody has heard of this as a famous Enron-esque type of thing, where they took in venture capital of like several $1 billion, right? And she was going to invent this she had this little gadget that her Spurg nerd buddies were making that would diagnose you. You prick your finger and it does some bleeps and bloops, and it tells you everything about your history and your health. Okay, well, it doesn't work. It was just a bunch of nonsense. It was a dang plastic toy that did nothing, basically.
Lab testing is not.
But what was funny about her was, like, she was this mousy, squeaky voice chick, and then in order to sound like a CEO, she trained herself to have like a baritone voice. Just obvious scammery, right? Come on.
Something that people generally.
This is her baritone voice, and this is, she's basically talking like Teal Swan. I feel like you're not in alignment with me right now, and if you are not in alignment, I can project myself into your mind and diagnose you. I mean, the whole stock market as an orbiting appendage of the dollar is also scams, right? Not that you can't buy stock and make money, but that it's a manipulated, scammy thing, right? Because there's algorithmic trading. There's trading going on at the level of hedge funds that can manipulate these markets. So it doesn't mean markets themselves are evil. It doesn't mean that dollars are evil, right? It has to do with how it functions and whether it's attached to something with value. College is a giant scam, and it's all linked into getting you into debt. It's all a control mechanism, and it's a socializing, brainwashing situation. Okay, so what education used to be, the medieval idea of the university, that's not what universities are. Now, if you go to college and you got the money and you want to spend that to go to engineering classes and get your STEM degree, science, tech, whatever, math stuff, okay, I can see the justification for higher education. And if we were in a more normal society where the arts had a better place, a proper place, and were not themselves weaponized social engineering tools, I could see that potentially, yeah, you would go to university to learn philosophy, to learn logic, to learn the trivium and the quadrivium, right? All of that stuff makes sense. That's the ethos from which those things actually come. But that's not where we are in the modern world with what university college life is. Now, again, there are exceptions to this. There are nice, solid private schools out there, sure. But the state-run, board-run system of education is a giant socialization process scam that many people have written about. There is a great book by Rushdoony. Don't typically recommend Rushdoony's books, but one that I would recommend is his book, The Messianic Character of American Education. And so some of my essays pull from that. But of course, there's also Charlotte Iserbyt's famous book, The Deliberate Dumbing Down. And she was in charge of education under Reagan and brought to the world the first real focus and attention on, in tandem with, the Reese Committee prior to her, but the manipulation and transformation of American education into a socializing tool based on the models of Marxism, Sovietism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a little caught up in boomer Cold War stuff, right? So it's not the Soviets that are taking over. Come on. It is the corporate elite above those dialectics of the Cold War, which Quigley identifies. And who, according to the Reese Committee, was being looked at? Rockefellers, Ford Foundation, J.P. Morgan, the big foundations, putting zillions of dollars into education. The Reese Committee, look it up if you don't know about it. Norman Dodd, tax-exempt foundation analysis. Okay? And so college education, and we can attach onto that charities and NGOs, giant wheels within wheels scammery. Doesn't mean everything is about it. This is what people can't list. They can't grasp nuance, right? They hear me say that and they're like, well, you're a credentialist. You tout that you have a degree. Yeah, because it's not an all or nothing thing, right? So we're speaking in generalities about these structures and how they work. But if you go and get a philosophy degree, you can find universities are still good. They're going to challenge you. They're going to force you to write hundreds and hundreds of papers over the years to get your undergrad and graduate degree. And that will help you develop competence. You're going to have to deal with some shithead libtard professors. Yes, it's going to be a nightmare. I did. But there is still the skeletal possibility in some places for a decent education in liberal arts. But it's getting worse and worse and worse in most universities to try to do that kind of stuff. Because they're turning more and more into straight up organs of just outright propaganda. That's the problem, you see. Right? Now they're saying numbers, logic, and math are oppressive. I'm not joking. And universities are adopting that. And so on the whole, education, colleges, university system, you need to go into $100,000, $200,000 debt to get a piece of paper that a bunch of brainwashed quacks say you're ready to be in the public sphere, the workforce. What a scam. And anybody who's gone into great debt knows that it's a giant. And by the way, it's all just the old way of doing things. Okay. Do you think this university scam structure is going to continue into the future when this country gets worse and worse? No. Because the person in the philosophy department doesn't know anything about what's going on in the biology department. They don't know anything about what's going on in the economics department. Because it's hyper focused, hyper specialized, and compartmentalized. And it's that way by design. Our society, our world is hyper structured. This is what people don't understand. They think that it's just kind of like organically just random stuff happens. Just one damn thing after another. No. Our society is hyper organized, hyper structured. And the chaos, the disorganization that occurs in modern society is part of the structure. It is taken account of. It is factored into the system, and it is largely managed and controlled. That is something that people can't understand. And in order to understand that, you have to understand controlled chaos, managed dialectics. Brzezinski's arc of crisis model of managing the post-Cold War Soviet bloc countries. We will allow and run and manage and control certain allowed for degrees of chaos, of warfare. People cannot fathom that. They cannot fathom or grasp that we live in a largely controlled world. And yet, what I'm trying to illustrate today is an aid to understanding that through large-scale con artistry, large-scale cons, lies, deceptions. Let's go back to the classic examples. I know we're on education, but the classic examples of warfare. Everybody knows about warfare engaging in deception. Well, don't you guys know that most warfare begins through some kind of triggered event? Do you think that wars are started randomly, chaotically? Or do you think that planning and strategy goes into warfare? Maybe the things that kick off warfare are famously strategized and planned. And we all know nowadays the sinking of the Lusitania, the Gulf of Tonkin. Famous triggers: the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, World War I, the Black Hand, the secret society. Sinking of Lusitania, planned, fake flag. Gulf of Tonkin, planned, fake flag. Jim Morrison's dad is the admiral, the Gulf of Tonkin. And on and on and on. In fact, this isn't the exception. This is the norm in warfare. So if you can understand that goes on in warfare and in enemy engagement at that level, that wars are kicked off by planned events and assassinations. And we just saw the former Prime Minister of Japan, Abe, recently assassinated. Well, I thought conspiracies don't exist. I mean, my tinfoil hat, because I'm pretty sure high-level political assassinations are conspiracies. Even if you think it was a lone nut, the lone nut conspired to be in the situation to do that. And so reminding ourselves of warfare. For example, the Allies, if I recall, I'm not sure about that, so I won't say that. But did you watch Operation Mincemeat? Remember when we covered this with Ian Fleming, right? Ian Fleming and his PSYOPs team came up with the idea to place the false plans, the fake plans, in the breast pocket of the dead staged soldier so that the Germans would find it, so that they would be misdirected through Operation Mincemeat. We covered the whole movie. I'm going to be talking about another movie related to British intelligence, just like Operation Mincemeat, called The Courier, with old Benedict Cucumber Snatch, right? Did you watch The Courier? Pretty good. It was not the movie I expected. It was total propaganda, but it wasn't the movie I expected it to be. If you saw The Courier. Well, that involved high-level deception, high-level Cold War dialectics. We'll talk about that in a minute, because I just watched it last night. Totally relates to this, right? But he was recruited in the corporate sphere, right? The Benedict Cumberbatch guy. The corporate businessman recruited to be involved as a courier for the information, dead drop, whatnots with Oleg Penkovsky, the famous defector, would-be defector. So anybody who's read a single book on espionage would know this, would know that conspiracies are not the exceptions. They are the norm at all times. I mean, do you think that foreign governments, for example, do you think that they just stop surveilling? Do you think they stop watching embassies? Do you think they just turn off the computers for a while and just like don't do cyber ops? I mean, don't you think that that's going on 24/7? Do you think Chinese spies stop spying over the weekend or something? I mean, it's a 24/7 thing. Governments are watching every other government. Spies are at embassies in every embassy in the world. Spying. That's what spies do. Media outlets churning out disinformation, misinformation, gray propaganda, white propaganda, black propaganda at all times, 24/7. That is part of the praxis and ethos of the world that we live in. And it's all 100% real, 100% verifiable. Anybody who's read one book on spycraft would know this. And education, colleges, charities, NGOs are all part of that scam matrix. Scams within scams, wheels of scams within concentric onion ring circles of scammery. If you don't stop having children, Mother Earth is going to collapse, right? Mammy Earth can't handle babies, right? It's just a cloak for antinatalism depop. That's all it is. That's all this is. And it's a way to reorganize society according to the circular kibble World Economic Forum Klaus Great Reset economy. That's all this is. Literally all it is. 100%. It's completely manufactured. 100% fake. There is GOENGINEERING. That's real. We've written about that for many years. But what they say it is not what it is. Renting. BlackRock renting houses. You will not own anything, right? We're going to buy up all of everything. There was a really good documentary somebody put together on this. And I'm putting this on here because this is basically making everybody into a renter, right? That's the point of this whole thing. So here is the link to this documentary. And renting isn't just a thing that everybody's bitching about with the landlords now that we're in this recession with the inflation, right? Renting is itself a scam because it's not just the model for sleazy landlords with a bunch of chest hair like you see right here. This is the aesthetic of a landlord right here, right? And you got a broke microwave, you got a broke dishwasher. You call me a million times and I don't come fix it because I'm a sleazy landlord. I'm a dang slumlord over here right now. But by the way, I'm going to raise your rent $50, $100 because I'm a sleazy landlord right now. See? It's not just that. The circular economy that Tristana just talked about in his video. That is the central nugget of Klaus's worldview, what he has planned. The reason he says you will own nothing until you be happy is because it's a circular economy where you don't own anything. Literally. Everything is rented, user-based, use-based, to each according to his needs, right? I mean, it's literally, it's Carl stuff. Carl, right? We're not talking about Carl from Walking Dead. We're talking about Karl Marx, who is a Walking Dead. Carl. So this video does really good going into
management.
I can't play that because that's stupid music. Last time I played a clip of it, it flagged the freaking dumbass music in the documentary. I mean, it's like background music in somebody's documentary gets flagged, so you can't play anything. Renting. Yeah, so let's look at this clip from beautiful Tristana. So Tristana just put up this video. I think he did two good ones. One about a couple days ago and then a new one today. So definitely check out Tristana's couple videos. But we're going to watch a couple minutes of this so that you can see this point that he's been prophetically analyzing and calling out in terms of the circular economy. Okay? The circular economy. That doesn't just mean Tessa Holiday, right? That's a circular economy of its own. We're talking about the circular economy where you rent everything from Klaus.
To save the planet, of course. Now we're saying that global hunger numbers have risen significantly the last year. Isn't it amazing how sustainability...
Tristan got some dang cartoon music in his video. Like, hey, Tristan, where you get the cartoon music at?
And saving the planet track exactly parallel with increased poverty and starvation. Destroying the food supply, removing farmers from the land, depopulating rural areas is the only way that these people are going
Look at that bald dude.
Accomplish getting people, duping people, and eating this dehumanizing slave slop, the powderized industrial cricket kibble being shilled by vapid, zonked out, medicated celebrities and prostitutes almost every day now. And the social engineering has just reached cartoonish levels, like satire. Can't even match reality now. Somebody on Instagram sent me in a DM this article about Fancy Feast. The Purina Cat Chow brand is making a pop-up restaurant for humans with a menu inspired by cat food. Oh, how delicious.
You will eat the kibble and you will be happy.
Now, I know this probably sounds great to a lot of you in the audience. You know, we're all just aching to replace our locally produced, easily digested, grass-fed, ruminant animal foods with a very difficult to digest, hard chitin covered cricket ground up into a powder and made into a tasteless kibble. I know a lot of us think this sounds great, but there is an actual dark side to this.
I mean, who can't see that everything pushed by these normie institutions, all run by the same zillionaires, is all detrimental to your health, toxic, gross, disgusting, and dumb. I mean, who believes that anything in any of this sphere is for anybody's good? You have to be super dumb to believe this.
This is the best thing I've ever found on the internet, and it helped me lose 21 pounds. Here's how. Skinny Fit Multi-Collagen Pep.
These industrial insect production factories that are supposedly such a sustainable
The rave going on.
And green
Tristan's got a rave in his house.
Produced animal foods just happen to be a major vector site
DJ
for
Tristan.
the production of possibly
Davos Wave remix.
parasites. In what seems to be the only major study done on the parasitological load in these industrial insect factories, the study in PLOS One, a scientific journal, study by Pedro L. Oliveira, titled "A Parasitological Evaluation of
That's the
Animal
DJ.
Insects and Their Role."
Right? You ever watch DJs? They just like turn knobs and then they're like doing like this, and they turn the knob, and then they turn the knob this way. But they turn knobs in a really cool way, right? The DJ's like the best knob turner, dude. Tristan's got a rave going on up in there. DJ Klaus in the house.
Transmission of parasitic diseases to humans and animals. Had some interesting findings. Parasites were detected in 244 out of 300 examined insect farms. That was 81% of the farms with parasites on them. Out of those 81% of farms on which parasites were found, 30% of the cases of parasites were potentially pathogenic for humans.
I kind of dig DJ Tristan, dude. This rave is badass. Cricket rave.
But that's
Cricket
just
rave.
probably nothing. Don't worry about that at all. It's probably fine. Totally fine. Normal. Good. Probably good for you. Probably healthy.
Tristan, I want to hear about Ida Alkin. Get to that. DJ Cricket. DJ Cricket. DJ Bug.
Another thing that's quite strange about these philanthropic endeavors to convince us about how great, sustainable, and healthy it is for us to eat these industrial produced bugs is that there is some crucial information that's conspicuously
Is that Jeffrey
missing
Bezos?
from a lot of the PR material. And that's what these supposedly sustainable and healthy insects are being fed.
The crickets here eat
Bring the rave music
corn,
back.
soy, and some flax. Corn, soy, and some flax. Corn, soy, and some flax. On average, the crickets
Soyoboros.
digest 1,000 pounds of feed a day.
The Orosoyos.
There you have it. They're eating a mixture of GMO corn and soy with a little bit of flax. But of course, these companies, in their marketing campaigns, want you to believe that they're basically dumpster diving behind Whole Foods, right? They're just feeding them scraps that no one else wanted to eat. It's just
He's going to get to the Ida Alkin bit in a minute,
so
which is
far
important.
from the truth. If you are going to be scaling the industrial production of any type of food, one of the first things you're thinking about is consistency in your end product, consistency in taste, and in the results and the quality of your product. In order to have that, you have to have consistency.
Oh, keep in mind too, we know this is social engineering and all of that, and ultimately changing everybody's diet. But there's also a pure monetary scam element to this stuff, because the giant bug factories, it's just a super cheap way to push garbage as food, right? So it's all, don't forget the monetary scam element of this. That's what I'm trying to say. So Nicole Kidman, Robert Downey Jr., they probably have money in bug food companies, you see.
In feed. These things are eating industrially produced, biotech, patented corn and soy. And we all know these large philanthropic companies like Bayer Monsanto are completely committed to sustainability. And what's more sustainable than Roundup Ready crops fortified with glyphosate? In fact, all the transnational agricultural corporations, biotech companies, chemical manufacturers are all members of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, working with the United Nations and lobbying for global carbon taxes and the circular economy.
Growing all these crickets is still more sustainable than farming pigs, poultry, or cattle.
So here we go. This is the part that I really wanted to get to. The circular economy, right? This is what they're going to be pushing next. This is the giant mega scam that all of the corporations that Tristan listed and talked about, all of the NGOs, all of these environmental entities, it is a corporate run and controlled fake just social justice activist type of thing. That's all this is. And it's not just so that people buying into it can make pennies on the dollar getting you to eat super cheap dirt crap that's packaged as some elite trendy thing. It's also part of the wider Great Reset program.
Produce just 1 kilogram of cow meat takes a stack.
Now that my point about renting, right? The Zoomers are all bitching on TikTok about landlords and renting and prices going up. You understand that the rental system is the future model of the global order. And I'm going to show you right here.
22,000 liters of water. And to produce that same amount of protein from a cricket, only a few.
That cows are so die to water the grass that these animals are eating throughout their entire life. Doing for so long, you're going to actually create more greenage, deposit more carbon into the soil, and produce tons of little infantilized pets.
I'm skipping ahead past the demonization of cows.
From Moscow, it's like talking to people who really know their stuff. It's like knowing your.
And fraudulent, absurd, and goofy as this whole eat the industrially produced, soy-fed bugs to save the planet scam. The new economic system in which we will own nothing and be happy is being called the circular economy. Here's Danish politician and young global leader from the World Economic Forum, Ida Alkin, who is the author of the article published in Forbes and on the World Economic Forum's website, Welcome to 2030. I own nothing, have no privacy, and life has never
There you go.
been.
So you think the real problem is your landlord? How you feel about Klaus as your global landlord? Klaus will be everybody's landlord. Gil Bates, everybody's landlord. I think we're going to have to raise this week's credit allotment. I think you're going to have to owe me. You have to pay another 45 hours in your coon pod this week. That's the interest on your previous coon pod loan that we gave you. Get those numbers down.
Better. Here's Ida Auken running the PR script for this new economic model.
That in 2050, we don't even have waste anymore. There will be no waste in 2050. Everything will be seen as a treasure because we will have created what some smart people call a circular economy. I have a friend, he says, every product is a service.
Some smart people. Okay, so I'm glad it's the scientists and the smart people that come up with this stuff. Otherwise, I wouldn't accept it. But since you said that they're sciencey and they're smart people, I'm down, bro.
Waiting to happen. Why do you want to own your cell phone? I mean,
why you want to own your cell phone?
Right?
Why you want to own your cell phone?
Lease it. Why shouldn't you lease your
why you want to own your cell phone?
I have a friend, he says every product is a service waiting to happen. Why do you want to own your cell phone?
Why you want to own your cell phone?
You want the function, you want the service, right?
Why you want to own your cell phone?
Lease it. Why shouldn't you lease your refrigerator or your washing machine or your dishwasher, or why do you want to own it? No, why don't you want to go into a business model where the company owns it? You know what happens when the company owns it?
Oh yeah, it's great. Actually, it'll be $1 cheaper. Yes. Oh yes, please, please, corporations own me. Why you want to own yourself? Why you want to own your own identity? Just let the corporation own you.
Because they don't have to buy new metal and new plastic. So if we start to share things, we can produce much better things that are used much.
Okay. Yes. When Klaus and Gil Bates and Pope Francis and all the other zillionaires and Leo DiCappuccino share their yachts and their villas and their palaces with me, then I will believe in your circular economy where you say we all need to share. When I see that, I will believe in the circular economy. When the zillionaire scammers who run all this, when they share things, then I will share with them. Otherwise, you are a con artist and you're trying to scam me, and I can tell.
More intensely. Think about a car. Do you know how much a car drives? How much of its life? 4%. 4% is how much a car drives. Or if you take
aspect of life, including our food supply. It is a centrally planned, vertically integrated techno-Bolshevism where we will literally own nothing. But it's so green because there'll be no waste. We promise. It's just a rebrand of recycle, reduce, and reuse, where you will...
We should like recycle people or whatever, dude. Like, if we had a machine that could like grind up the dead people and then turn that into little cubes of food or whatever, like why doesn't somebody just do that?
I guess a year and a half ago now, it was last summer, we started writing a bunch of academic papers for the journals that represent these fields. And so everybody understands what an academic paper is getting out of the gate. This isn't like an op-ed that you dash off for like Washington Post.
All right, so I'm going to share with you this clip. I think I can't really play those because if I play those clips, then they will probably get flagged. But exposing social justice with Peter Boghossian and James Lindsay, and I thought this was we will always be in debt to James Lindsay for doing this excellent thing of exposing peer review as a large bunch of scammery. And this gets into my larger critique in the next, as we move past diet, eating the bugs, health, right? Food pyramid. I forgot to mention the food pyramid, right? Be sure and get your 15 servings of pasta and grains every day that you need. And then get your meat last, right? You need the lowest amount of meat because meat has fat in it and fat is bad for you. Imagine still believing this. There are people that still believe this. People who believe that GMO wheat and bread is what you should eat every day. You need 15 servings of that a day, according to the food pyramid, right? I mean, the food pyramid, another food pyramid, eat the bugs, all the stuff that Tristana just talked about. Super major, mega, Great Reset level scam. Circular economy, the real renting landlord scammery that is the future. And then science, right? A big scam involved in all of this scam. Another scam within the scam. I see scams within scams. Is scientism and science scammery. And that is what James Lindsay helped to demonstrate was factually the case. Environment scam, the Great Reset agenda, climate scam, all of that is all part of the same thing. So the nexus point of all of this scammery is Great Reset. The greatest recent example of the latest phase of moving us into the NWO. Where do we find? So here's the ones I've listed so far: economics, activism, revolutions, right? Revolutionary activism, Extinction Rebellion, green activism, PETA, blah, 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 blah. Education, inducting you into the fake scam academic socialist activist complex. Rental economy, renting houses, circular economy, BlackRock, landlords taking over everything, Bill Gates buying up all the farmland. Where do all of these intersect in the modern world? I gave you examples of fake flags, fake crises, propaganda, crisis propaganda, Ice Age, blah, blah, blah. And the diet, bugs, environment agenda. Have you noticed? And the scientism, where does this all coalesce? Well, it all coalesces into the conspiracy that we've called attention to for years now, known as Great Reset. Klaus's Great Reset. By the way, the pharmaceutical, pushing drugs, pharmaceutical drugs on everybody, to the detriment of actual organic products that work good. The ninth scam of our top 10 scams is a recent scam that is the nexus point of all of the scams that we've listed as part of one giant big scam. Scams within scams. Gears and wheels of inner working scammery. Great Reset. Klaus's Great Reset. Gil Bates's Great Reset. World Economic Forum, Davos, Royal Society Great Reset. There we find all of these other scams we've listed of the 20th century coming to a head, uniting together like a Voltron of scam. If you remember Voltron, right? Each his legs, his arms, his body, his head, they all come together. This is a giant Voltron of scammery, united together in one giant fake and gray scam. Great Reset. Of course, Tristan talked about that in his video. And that leads me to my final scam, which, by the way, I don't think I need to rehearse what Great Reset is. We have done hours and hours and hours of lectures on writings of the people in the Great Reset, their works. We've covered Klaus's books. We've covered 50-ish of the global elite, so we don't have to rehearse all that. You can go find on my channel my multiple lectures, or over at Lord Voldemort's channel, you know his website, and you can find all of my lectures as there as well. Just search my name. Or at my website. And if you want access to the full archives, head on over to Jay's Analysis and subscribe. $4.95 a month, $60 a year gives you access to all of the archives going back all the years, getting all of this excellent content, all these lectures, which we are totally vindicated on. I mean, my essay on global green Luciferian government that I wrote 6 or 7 years ago is the Great Reset, and it's in my new illicit book, the Red Book, the infamous Red Book, which is also available. Anyway, so the final scam that all of the other scams scamoless into, scamgasm, to produce the transhumanist scam. This is the next great scam. And it is intimately connected to the previous scam of Great Reset, because Great Reset is a scam that leads to what Klaus called the invasion of your body. We will be inside of you. We won't just change your mind. We will change the DNA. Right? Transhumanism. That is the transhumanist desire, plan, ethos. And why is it a scam? Is it a scam because tech isn't real? No. Tech is real. Tech has amazing capabilities. It has amazing potentials. It's a great tool for humans. But it is also a weaponized scam tool for the elites. Why? Why would tech? Well, tech is what is building the prison that we are inhabiting. We are building our own prison like THX 1138. If you've not watched that movie, go watch it, because the humans build the robots that enslave them. and beat them. Right? But the scam that is involved here is, with the technology. If you buy into this propaganda that I'm here as an elite, we are the elite, we are here to help you. We want you to have life extension. We want you to live forever. Also, we want you to not live, but we also want you to live forever, right? I mean, who could believe these psychos? So technology is going to allow you to upload to the cloud, and you're going to live forever in your virtual universe. And also maybe you can reincarnate into a new body. We'll download you into That's not for you. Number one, that's not real. Even if it was, they're not going to give that to you. You're a normie, a dummy. It's not for you. It's for them and their families, the elite. They have a disgust and disdain for you. They're not going to give you immortality. They're social Darwinists. They want you to go away. Delete you. But you, as a dumb normie, think that you're going to get immortality from people that hate you? Number one, they can't give you immortality. It's a lie. It's a scam. But even stupider on your part to believe that the people that want you to depop are going to give you immortality. How dumb is that? You think Gil Bates wants to give you immortality? How dumb are you? Stop being so stupid. Because your stupidity just backs up their worldview. And so the last couple years of PSYOPs, STAB, STABBIES, which is all part of Great Reset, clear as day, Klaus has a whole book on it, is the coalescing of all the previous ones into the great final scammery of transhumanism, which is not to give you anything. It is, in fact, to delete you and then to purge the world of the human menace, transforming humanity into a silicon-based life form. Yes, to mutate into a post-human world where there are no humans, but there are, in fact, silicon-based whatever they think they're going to be. Tech gods. Techno-nihilist gods of the new aeon. I think I did a stream called that, or something like that. So that is the final scammery. Now, are there life extension technologies? Are there technologies, nano-biotechnologies that can go in and probably fix us from various diseases and extend life? Sure, of course. I'm sure there's all that. But that is not for you. And the reason this is being pushed is not to help veterans. Okay? The elite don't care about a veteran that lost his leg. In fact, Henry Kissinger mocks veterans. He says that soldiers are dumb cattle and cannon fodder. And so if a soldier in a Wounded Warrior Project gets a bionic leg, that's not to help soldiers. It's not because they don't care about soldiers. That's a experiment. That's a PR propaganda piece. That's all that is.